Philippians 4:1, Paul says, therefore, my brothers and sisters, you whom I love and long for, my joy and my crown. Man, Paul plants this church, and now he's writing a letter, and he's closing out his letter in the last chapter, and he opens up, therefore, my brothers and sisters, you whom I love and long for, my joy and my crown. Whenever I read that, it resonates with me. Whenever I think of you guys, I love and I long for you guys to be here with us. And I'm so excited that you're here with the church with us. I pray for you guys. I love and I long for you guys. I'm telling you, in my one-on-ones, I tell people all the time, you know I love you. You know I want you to grow. You know that when you're here, it's not just words, but I'm telling you, I love you. I want the best for you. And every single time I say that, I'm ready to go in. I got to soften them up before I really go after them. And that's what Paul's doing right here. I feel like he's just saying, okay, I got to correct you right now, but I got to let you know that I love you and I care for you. I long for you. I want this for you, but I'm about to go in on you right now. So, in verse 2, he says, I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, my true companion, help these women, since they have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers whose name are already written in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. I say it again, rejoice. And I say it again, rejoice. Just in case you didn't hear me the first time, I need to say it again, rejoice in the Lord, regardless of the struggles, regardless of what you're going, regardless of the contention, rejoice in the Lord. He's talking about contention, but he says rejoice. Because I think when he says it the first time, you're still stuck in what you're already thinking about, and you're like, yeah, I know, rejoice, I got you. But it's like, no, you don't get it. Rejoice in the Lord. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God. Everybody say the peace of God. Man, somebody interested in the peace of God? The peace of God. The peace of God, which transcends. It transcends all understanding. The world looks at it and wonders, why in the world, with you going through what you're going through, that you can have this peace? And you can tell them it's of God. And it will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, everybody say true. Whatever is noble, say noble. Whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. God, let these words pierce our hearts today, God. Your words, the one written in red, let it pierce through our hearts and bless my voice today, that it would only speak the things that you want for your people, God. We thank you and love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Why don't you guys take your seats today? Today I'm going to talk about peace of mind. Peace of mind. I feel like with everything going on right here in our crazy little world right now, that peace of mind is something that we kind of need. But happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. For Mother's Day, I feel like we kind of go all out for Mother's Day. Like every single year, we like, no. We cannot let Mother's Day go by without going all out. Like, we think of flowers, photo ops, we think of gifts, we think of decorations, we think of all different types of things. This last year, we did like this little tea party, coffee meetup during quarantine in the parking lot where the moms got to drive out and hang out with each other. And for Father's Day, we have... we have all the honor in the world for our fathers. We do. And there's somebody here at our church that's pretty much done every single role you can think of. He's been the creative director. He's been the e-groups mentor. He's been the guest experience coordinator. He's been the events director. He's been the board, on the board of trustees. He's been, his name is Ronnie Lim. I don't know if you guys know. But every single year in our staff meeting, when we're planning out all of the events and we get to Father's Day, he stands up and he's like, no, we gotta do something. We gotta do something. I mean, I think he has 5 kids now? 5 kids? 6? 5? 5, okay. I start to lose count once you get up there. It's like 7, 8? You got 8 kids. 5 kids, so he's like, I know what it's like to be a father. Honor me. No, but he fights for our fathers, and really we all need to be able to do that, really spend some time to really love on our fathers, because we already know what a tough job it is, the responsibilities that comes with. A father is supposed to lead his household, provide, protect, and not only that, spiritually guide them. If your kids fall off, that's your fault. That's your fault, but love your moms. Love your moms. It's a heavy weight and responsibility to carry, so we definitely honor our fathers. But I get the opportunity to share the word with you guys today, and it is a complete honor to be up here to really do this. I want to thank Pastor Jared to give me the opportunity. I know that it is, last time Missy preached, she started out just saying, I don't know how Pastor does this every single week. Exactly in that voice. But it's tough. It's tough. I'm like in prayer like all week long. I'm like in the Word studying all week long, or the last couple of weeks, just really the weight to be in the Word and just completely attached and devoted to God in order for you to really be able to share something of substance with the people you're responsible for. And so I want to give thanks to Pastor Jared to do this every single week. He's incredible for doing that. But when I first got married, I remember I just got married, and some people would ask me, hey, what is it like to be married? But help me out. Like, what are you learning? And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I felt so unqualified to help people with their marriages because I just got married myself, But in a blink of an eye, it's been 10 years. Been over 10 years married to my lovely wife right here, and she is definitely incredible. So 2 years ago, I preached my first Father's Day message, and my son was 6 months old, Canaan. He's 2.5 right now, but he was 6 months old, and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna give it a try. 6 months of experience. I'm gonna talk about the father's heart, because I know all about it. So it was all right. God really does shift who you are when you have your child. Like, sometimes 6 months really does feel like 6 years when you have this incredible shift in your heart. Like, you don't know love exactly that way until you have your child, But since then, I have my second child. So he is 6 months old right now. So I think they call it 2 under 2. And so I have 6 months of experience with 2 kids under 2 years old, and I promise you, 6 months of that is definitely 60 years of experience of being a dad. So, no, it's been incredible. It's been incredible to be a father, but the weight is real. The responsibility and the pressure, all of that is so real. But today, I want to read you guys. I want to share with you guys from the book of Philippians, and I want to. Paul is writing to the church as a whole in the church of Philippi, but I think that we can learn specifically just for our fathers today. So for our fathers, we have a message directly catered to you. And but I'll tell you what, the more I thought about it, fatherhood and anything in the sense of where you have influence or you feel pressure of leadership. It lives in the same world. Every single time you feel pressure to lead somebody well, the fathers are feeling that. Every time you feel the pressure of guiding somebody or responsibility for a person and a life, your father is feeling that. And so I hope that the word living and active will impact you, even though the word is catered to the fathers. So one thing I've learned about being a father, just like anything else, the same way in my marriage, same way I do leadership, or the same way I've learned everything, is I come into it with preparation. I come into it with as much as I know how. With everything I've learned growing up, I come into it with all of that, but I also have to come into it ready to change all of it. Because I think I'm right a lot. You know, I go into situations like, no. I think I'm right. Okay, I think I'm right all the time, okay? But that's in the moment. I found that, especially in my marriage, that the things I used to think at one time, I do no longer think. So I do understand that it takes humility. And it takes you to understand that the thing that you think right now isn't concrete for the rest of your life. So the same way with fatherhood, maybe I'm teaching Canaan one thing today, but 5 years from now, my thoughts will be completely different. And you need to have the thought to be able to switch everything up. So I have 3 points for you today to maybe reevaluate everything, because it's hard. It's hard to do all of these things, because I grew up in an era where people used to clown on you for having any emotion. The moment you show any affection or show any type of a genuine emotion, you are no longer a man. Man's man. You got to have that tough exterior. You know what I'm saying? Somebody here know what I'm talking about, because they still feel that way. What you talking about? I ain't crying, you crying. But I grew up that way. I grew up around that. My dad was tough. He had 10 kids, and he immigrated over to this country. He needed to be that way, and that's the only way I knew how to be. And so there's this still a big part of me that doesn't allow me to enter in the world of my emotions. You know, it doesn't allow me to emote or anything. There was this one time about a year ago, Canaan was about 18 months old, and we were outside, and I was working on something. And then we were outside, and I was working. This boy loves to help. It's an incredible thing. It's like, help daddy. Help daddy. That's like a line that he loves saying. He runs. What's he do? He runs right for the hammer, you know? And my first instinctive thing to say was, hey, don't touch that. Don't touch that, because it's dangerous, right, moms? It's dangerous. You wouldn't let your 18-month-old kid play with a hammer. I take it from him, and I thought for about 3 seconds, and I'm like, okay, here. Mom's not around. I have the responsibility to make sure that you are a man by the time we're done with this. So take this hammer. Just don't hurt yourself too bad, okay? We have bandages, but I don't want to drive you to the hospital. But I felt the need that I have to ensure that he was going to grow with some toughness. That at the end of the day, that when he's with his future wife, that there will be a sense of protection that he has. There needs to be that in a man. And I feel like I live so far on that side a lot of times that whenever anything comes to emotions, I erase it. I don't even let myself go there. I just turn it off. It's like a switch. Oh, I'm feeling. I got to walk away, because that scene in that chick flick is too much right now. And I love chick flicks. I ain't gonna lie. The older I get, I don't care. But for a long time, that was the case. You know, for a long time, it's just there is the line that I don't cross, because I'm not gonna be made fun of. I'm going to make sure people know that I have that. But I'd like to share with you guys today that maybe our fathers need to re-examine your posture. I know that I want nothing more than my son to say one day, my dad can do anything Nothing can stop him. He is like this superhero. I want that. I want to hear him say that about me, right? But not at the cost of him questioning the fact that I love him. I don't know. He's never really hugged me, or he never really cared to the point where it just. I think he loves me. I think he does, but if your posture is leaned so far into this toughness world of this exterior, I say let's re-examine that posture, because your child needs your affection. In verse 5 it says, "Let your gentleness be evident to all." Your gentleness. No, he's not talking about the women. He's talking about the church. Let your gentleness be evident. I want my child to know that there is gentleness in me. There is a softness of my heart when it comes to people and when it comes to him. There is a sense that I will break down when God's heart is breaking. I want to hurt. When God is crying, I want to cry. I want to make sure that he sees the side of me that is complete. I don't need to put up a facade. I don't need to pretend that I don't have these emotions just so that he can respect me as a man. So fathers, if you live on that side, I promise you, your kids will honor and respect you so much more if you show that affection. They need it. They crave it. Your children crave this affection from you. And you got to set aside this rough exterior for this facade purpose. It's hard, though. It's hard to balance this thing, because at the end of the day, I got to make sure he knows how to be a protector. And then how do I balance this thing about, but you're allowed to cry. Stop crying. Oh, wait. Stop crying or let him cry. And I get confused sometimes, you know. Boys don't cry. There's no tears in baseball. No crying in baseball? No crying, yeah. I only know that because Missy says it all the time. No crying in baseball. Get yourself together. And I feel like I want to do that to him, but then how do I do that without balancing the act of making sure that he knows gentleness is just as important? So I'm going to mess up. I feel like I don't know when to do what and when to do how, and it's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure being a good dad. But I'd like for you today to maybe reconsider the pressure. Reconsider where that pressure is coming from. Because in the verse 6 it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." God's telling us, the Bible's telling us, do not be anxious, but then we're feeling all this pressure. And where's that all coming from? If God is saying don't be anxious and we live on the side of so much pressure, how do we do this? So we got to reconsider where this pressure is coming from. I do a lot of leadership development here at the church. I get the privilege to do that. So I study that all the time, and I spend some time with our leadership college students, and right now our brand new E2 internship. I get the privilege to do that with them. And just yesterday, I got to share a teaching on the difference between pressure and weight. Pressure and weight. I'm going to let that sink in for you guys just a second, because some people use it synonymously. They'll say, "Man, that's a lot of pressure. You know, it's really hard carrying all this weight." Or they'll say, "Man, that's a lot of weight. It's hard with all this pressure." Like they just say it back and forth like it's the same thing. It's the same thing. But I'd like for you to reconsider what pressure is all about. Pressure. There's a scientific term. But I'm not gonna go there with the semantics for you guys. Oh, Lindsay is like, "Oh, I want to hear the scientific term." She's a scientist. She's a future veterinarian. So she's like, "Oh man, I can't wait for these definitions." But there's a psychological term. There's a psychological term for pressure, and it comes from the need to perform. Pressure comes from this need to perform and perform well. A lot of people come onto this stage and they will say that, man, it's so much pressure to perform. Sometimes I fall into that. That I get up here and I'm like, man, I hope they like it. But I hope you heard that question. I hope they like it. Because the performance comes from the acceptance of people. Because I hope you know you're not performing for God. Because he already knows how you're going to do, and he chose you to do it anyway. So pressure itself doesn't come from God. Pressure comes from people. And the need to please people, the pressure, anytime you feel the immense pressure, think about it. Is this a godly thing, or is this just me needing to please the people I'm performing for? And so fathers, I want to tell you, pressure, whenever you feel the pressure of being a good father, that is not of God. The pressure for you I get it. There's a lot of things that you gotta do. You gotta make sure that not only you're leading your family, but you're providing for the family, and then you're out there trying to make ends meet, and then you get home and you're struggling because maybe it's not working out right now. But can I tell you, I've never met a child that loves their father more just because they live in an apartment or a mansion. Your child loves you because of the investment, the time you spend with them, the time that you're willing to put your phone aside, put your laptop aside, and sit and play with them on the carpet, outside, go outside, throw some rocks with him. I do that with Canaan. Now he's throwing rocks at the window, so maybe not do that. But spend some time with your children. That is what it's after. Now, weight is different. Weight is different from pressure because weight comes from responsibility, and responsibilities come from God. The weight of fatherhood is what God gave you to steward. The weight of your job or all of that, God gave you to steward. And I know it feels like there's this need for excellence to do it right, but it's not about performance because God already knows that you're going to mess up. He wouldn't have gave it to you to steward if messing up was not a part of it. Weight is what we're after. There's a parable of the talents that we talk about often, where a master leaves his servants with 5 talents, which are bags of gold. There's another, they call it the parable of the bags of gold. 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent. And the end, he comes back. He comes back, and the servant that comes back says, you gave me 5, I brought 5 back. And he says, thy good and faithful servant. You gave me 2, I brought 2 back, thy good and faithful servant. And the one that came back, the servant with 1, that he buried it, and he said, I just didn't want to lose it, so I'm giving it back to you. What you gave me, I gave back to you. And some people look at that parable as in like, you didn't perform. You didn't double up what I gave you. But I think when God says, thy good and faithful servant, he's looking at the fact that as soon as he gave it to me, the first 2 servants went right away to put it to work. I stewarded it right away. It's about you stewarding it, not the performance that you're going to bring something back. I wonder if the first servant came back with nothing but tried everything. You gave me 1, I came back, I lost it all, but I tried everything. God would still say, thy good and faithful servant. He's after your stewardship, not your performance. He wouldn't set you up like that. But a lot of times performance comes from the need for perfection. And perfectionism is real. I hope y'all know that. I learned that just this week. Perfection. And if we're after perfection, you're going to fail miserably over and over again. You got to know you're going to make mistakes. You got to know it. You got to know in the midst of all of this that when you're trying to steward what God has given you, you're going to make mistakes. And you growing how to be a father, that's all going to happen. But the key is when you do make those mistakes, will you accept it? Will you forgive and apologize accordingly? Would you be able in those moments to reevaluate your pride? Because the mistakes are not the problem. It's the way you react to those mistakes. I'm going back to Philippians 4:2. He says, I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. This is before he talks about everything else. Before he talks about rejoicing in the Lord, before he talks about gentleness, before he talks about don't be anxious, he says, settle your differences. Be in unity. Because this division, you want to not be anxious and you want to glorify God in the household when you're divided. It's not going to happen. And that division happens when you hold onto your pride. You got to reevaluate it. Start rethinking about what is this pride for? What is this need for? He pleads with them. Paul launches this church, and he's talking to two women leaders in the church, and he pleads with them. He said, I plead with Euodia. I plead with Syntyche. Please settle your differences. Because it's that important. Unity is that important. He said it again in Colossians. He says, Colossians 3:14, he says, and over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. And in John says it in 17:23, he says, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to a complete unity. And I can pull up verse after verse after verse after verse about how important unity is. And I'll tell you, the thing that separates you, that divides you, that is against unity is your pride. Are you able to reevaluate that pride? Because the only pride I want in my household and in my family is my pride and joy. When my son is 18 years old and going off to college and he's sharing the gospel on a campus that is completely secular, that's my pride and joy. That's the child that God gave me to steward. That's the only pride I want in my life. Everything else in between, I'm ready to drop it, reevaluate it. When you're carrying the pride of self versus, think about the pride and joy that's going to happen if you're willing to drop. You're willing to drop it. Stay unified in your house. Unified in your marriage. Unified with your kids. Do not exasperate them, but bring them up in the Lord. My wife's here today. She's an incredible woman of God. Just like Paul, when he starts talking about all of the good things, he's going to start saying something now. So my wife, in the last 3 years, she's either been pregnant or had newborn or is nursing and all of those things. And she's been doing that incredibly. I'm telling you what, she loves her babies. She spends every 3 hours around the clock nursing for months and months. And I'll tell you what, it is no joke to be doing all of those things. She is definitely sleep deprived but she makes time. She does it. Super mom. She does it. She pulls it off. She works a full-time job with a toddler running around, pulling on her mouse. I've seen her in meetings and just say, oh, I'm sorry, guys. My 2-year-old is pulling on my mouse or something along those lines. And so I don't know how she pulls that off, but she's doing it. She's killing the game. She's killing the game. But anybody who's been married to a woman that's pregnant and nursing would also know that there are seasons of hormonal logic and rationale that happens, When I speak to moms, sometimes moms are like, I have no clue why I'm crying right now. I'm happy. But the thing is, she'll communicate all of these things. We'll sit and we'll talk about it. And she's like, it's really weird. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to evaluate everything, that it's not what I want to do, but for some reason this is coming out. So things have been a little crazy at moments and at times. So there was this one time early on that she was just bursting out, Just out of nowhere, and it was consistent. It was just like a few weeks of just like I was afraid to walk by her because like it was just a rough season. And I devised a plan because I had enough is enough. You know, I'm a man's man. I don't get treated like this. Enough is enough. But I was like, but I know my role. It's patience and love and forgiveness in this season. That's what I give the advice to the other fathers going through this. I'm like, hey, your job is just to love them, forgive them, get out their way, bring them their food. You know, whatever you need to do, just do that. But enough was enough this moment. I was just so fed up. So I devised a plan. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a good. Devised a plan. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Dad, I'm going to do all the response. I'm going to go over. I'm going to make sure that I care for the baby more. Do all the night feedings. You know, get your rest, baby. You know, I'm going to do all of that, but I'm going to disengage just so that she can feel it. Look how great I'm being, and look how horrible you're being. You know, that was my plan. Sorry, guys. Pray for your pastor, okay? That was my plan in my head, you know? It's just like, maybe it wasn't that malicious in my mind, but eventually, I think like in the back of my mind, it was the point, you know? But the moment I decided that, the moment I decided to disengage to let her feel this, for some reason, my mind started thinking about all the negative things. Like it just kept on going in circles. Now, even though I'm doing the chores, there was no joy in doing the chores. In loving my child, I was doing that out of spite now. When I was feeding them or caring for him or doing the chores in the house, doing the laundry, it was just all out of spite, and I felt myself changing. Who I was shifting, and all of a sudden, man, just that little plan to just kind of, I don't know, settle the difference so I can work out my emotions. I became a whole different person. And I recognized it. The first 3 days, anything she did, all of a sudden, I snapped. You know, I would snap at her, and she's like, what is going on right now? I became a different person because I fed myself with all the negativity. See, the difference is in Euodia and Syntyche, the division. Paul pleads them to be unified, and this is how he talks about it. In verse 8, he says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything are excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. When he says think about it, it doesn't mean like just have a thought. He says dwell on those things. Let it soak in you. Instead of the negativity, let it soak anything that is praiseworthy. And I started changing my perspective. I started saying, man, she's an incredible mom. What she's going through right now, man, if my mind is all going wild every couple of days and I'm up every 3 hours and I know I still have the same responsibilities. Nothing changes. And then I just add on this heavy weight. I started changing my mind and I started forgetting about all this negativity. I had to apologize big time, by the way. Baby, forgive me. But the difference is this. Although I apologize, we worked it out, but I became a person I liked again. Because in those 3 days, I looked at myself. I looked at the way I was acting, and this is not who God created me to be. For 3 days, I was spiteful and petty. I was just angry and just at the edge of snapping because I kept on feeding myself with this negativity. Was it real? Yeah, it was real. But I kept feeding myself with it to the point that the person that I knew God created me to be was no longer who I looked at in the mirror. Whatever is true, think about it. Whatever is noble, dwell on it. I hope you know this big list is there for you to not just say, check the boxes that apply. He says all of them. Because some of you guys are like, no, it's true. She's being a brat. I'm thinking about that. Wait, is it true and noble? And right? And admirable? And praiseworthy? Think about such things. Go through the entire list to make sure that your thoughts that you're feeding yourself fill up in all of those items. Fathers, What you feed yourself determines the culture in your household. What you feed yourself in your mind, what you dwell on, determines the temperature in your house. You always think that, no, she's the one that causes all of this. She's the one that brings all the anger, and she sets the temperature. But I'll tell you, the thing that you feed yourself dictates the rest of the household. You lead your household. You care for your household. You got to be careful with what you feed yourself. So Paul, in the same way, this last chapter in Philippians, he's challenging the Philippians to live up to this, to live up to it. And he says this, he says in chapter 3, he says, live up to what you've already attained. It's not this need of being perfect or to the point where Paul is. He says, I get it. Everybody's in a different stage. But live up to what you've already attained. God's going to work out everything else that you're still working on. But what you know already, live up to that. He's challenging him to live up to that. Can we get to our feet today? I know that being a father is so rewarding, but man, the difficulty is real. And a lot of times you feel like you're stranded. How did this happen? How did God decide to give me lives to steward like this? This guy, this irresponsible guy, he's all of a sudden believes in me like that. He's trusting you with it. We often say that, trust God in everything he does. And we're called to trust him in that, but at the same time, it's a two-way street. He trusts you with stewarding that family. He wouldn't have chosen you. You think you did this on yourself? By yourself, he chose you specifically to lead your family. So today, I just want to pray for all of our fathers and all of our families here today. I know that Father's Day is a difficult season for a lot of us. Like a lot of us miss our fathers. A lot of us has lost our fathers. Pastor Jared often talks about when he lost his father. It's not an easy thing. It's a challenging time for a lot of us. Some of us never even knew our fathers. But can I tell you that our Father in heaven, I know it sounds like I have to say that. You know, I have to say our Father. No, but our Father in heaven will supply every need that any earthly father was supposed to give you. Our Father in heaven will supply every need that you have if you would lean on him.